Animal House, the wild comedy that redefined a genre, gave us one of the most memorable lines in film history, and it wasn't even planned. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no. But how did a slip-up turn into the most beloved line in the movie? The story behind the iconic line. In the world of filmmaking, sometimes the most memorable moments happen by accident. This is exactly what unfolded in the iconic college comedy Animal House, specifically during one of its most famous scenes. The line, "Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?" Hell no, wasn't just a punchline, it was a mistake that turned into pure cinematic gold, capturing the chaotic spirit of the film perfectly. The scene is set during a fraternity meeting, and the tension is palpable. The Delta Tau Chi fraternity brothers are in a desperate situation, facing possible expulsion from their beloved Faber College. Everything they've worked, or rather partied, so hard for is hanging by a thread. The room is filled with nervous energy as they scramble to figure out their next move. It's a classic David versus Goliath moment, and everyone is looking for a way to rally the troops, to ignite that fighting spirit in a situation that seems utterly hopeless. Then comes the line that sets everything into motion. "I lied to you too." Simple, yet it holds a weight of betrayal and urgency. This line is crucial because it sets the stage for what's to come. It's the kind of confession that sends a ripple of shock through the room, breaking the already fragile morale of the group. But just as the mood is about to hit rock bottom, Bluto, played by the brilliant John Belushi, decides to take charge. His eyes light up with a mix of desperation and determination, and the atmosphere in the room shifts from despair to a frantic scramble for any sign of hope. Bluto's next line, "Oh yeah? What about I'm only?" is delivered with that perfect blend of confusion and defiance. There's a pause, a moment where you can almost see the wheels turning in his head. This is where the magic of the scene begins to unfold. It's as if Bluto is grasping at straws, trying to find something, anything, to keep the spirits up. And it works, sort of. His delivery is so spot on, so in tune with his character's chaotic nature, that it draws everyone's attention. The audience is right there with him, caught up in the frenzy of trying to make sense of it all. And then Bluto delivers another line that builds the tension further. "Thank you, God. Remain calm. All is well." It's the kind of line that's both reassuring and absurd, perfectly encapsulating the film's irreverent humor. There's a certain irony in his words, given that nothing about the situation is remotely calm or well. Yet it's this very absurdity that makes the line work so well. It's a brief moment of calm in the storm, a desperate attempt to cling to any semblance of order before everything descends into chaos. But then comes the moment that no one could have predicted, the mistake that would go down in history as one of Animal House's most beloved lines. Bluto, in a fit of passionate ignorance, bellows, "Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?" Hell no. The line is so wrong, so historically inaccurate, that it's absolutely perfect. The brilliance of this mistake lies in its delivery. Bluto isn't just saying the words, he's owning them. He's so caught up in his own fervor that the historical inaccuracy doesn't even register to him, or to the audience. At least not immediately. This line, delivered with such conviction, wasn't in the script. It was a pure improvisation by John Belushi, a moment of on-the-spot genius that perfectly captured the essence of his character. The confusion wasn't just a slip-up, it was a deliberate twist on historical events, reflecting Bluto's character as someone who is passionate, but not necessarily the sharpest tool in the shed. Director John Landis recognized the comedic potential in this blunder and encouraged Belushi to play it straight, to fully commit to the mistake as if it were the most serious rallying cry ever uttered. And it worked spectacularly. The audience's reaction to this line is what truly made it iconic. It's the kind of moment that catches you off guard, makes you laugh out loud, and leaves you wondering if you just heard what you think you did. The absurdity of it, combined with Bluto's unwavering confidence, is what makes it so memorable. It's a mistake that feels so true to the character, so in line with the film's chaotic spirit, that it becomes an integral part of the movie's identity. The chaotic making of Animal House. The making of Animal House was as wild and unpredictable as the film itself. If you think the movie was chaotic, the story behind its creation is even more incredible. It's a tale of near disasters, stubborn filmmakers, and a cast that lived out the Delta Tau Chi lifestyle, both on and off the screen. Let's get into how this chaotic masterpiece came to be. First off, it's hard to believe now, but Animal House almost didn't happen. In the mid-1970s, comedy was in a weird place. Studios were hesitant to take risks on anything too outrageous, and the idea of a film centered around a bunch of misfit fraternity brothers didn't exactly scream box office hit. When National Lampoon came up with the concept, they faced nothing but resistance. Universal Pictures, which eventually produced the film, was far from enthusiastic at first. The studio didn't really know what to make of it. The script was raw, edgy, and completely unlike anything that had been done before. The script, originally titled Freshman Year, didn't generate much excitement. It was a loose, chaotic draft that needed a lot of work. Harold Ramis, Doug Kenney, and Chris Miller, the minds behind the script, struggled to refine it into something that could get a green light. And it wasn't just the script that caused headaches. The studio had serious doubts about the casting choices. Universal didn't see the potential in the unknown actors that director John Landis wanted to cast. They were pushing for more recognizable faces, especially from the Saturday Night Live, SNL, cast, which was extremely popular at the time. John Landis, however, had a different vision. He didn't want Animal House to feel like an extension of SNL. He knew the film needed fresh faces, actors who weren't already typecast or too familiar to audiences. Landis fought hard against the studio, who were adamant about casting big names like Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd, and Bill Murray. In fact, Chevy Chase was almost cast as Otter, but Landis purposely said all the wrong things during their meeting to dissuade him. He knew Chase wouldn't be right for the ensemble he was building. Chase walked away, and Landis could finally cast who he wanted. Tim Matheson, who ultimately played Otter, wasn't even the studio's first choice. Matheson had been typecast as a cowboy due to his previous roles, and the studio didn't think he was right for the part. But Matheson was determined. He refused to take no for an answer and insisted on auditioning for the role. It's almost poetic how the actor who would play the smooth-talking, confident Otter had to fight his way into the role, much like his character would. And that's just one example of the uphill battle this film faced before the cameras even started rolling. Once the film was greenlit, the next challenge was finding a location that would capture the spirit of the fictional Faber College. After being rejected by numerous colleges, the University of Oregon finally agreed to host the production. The irony? They didn't even bother to read the script. If they had, it's likely they would have turned it down just like everyone else. The university president, who had previously rejected The Graduate due to its risque content, didn't want to miss another opportunity. Little did he know that Animal House would make The Graduate look tame by comparison. Filming at the University of Oregon was an experience in itself. The campus provided the perfect backdrop for the film's anarchic spirit. But it wasn't just the location that made the film what it was the atmosphere on set. The cast arrived a week before filming started, and they were encouraged to bond, to become the Deltas. And bond they did. They stayed at a local motel where the line between their on-screen characters and off-screen lives began to blur. The cast members lived the Delta lifestyle, complete with all-night parties, pranks, and antics that mirrored the chaos they would later bring to the screen. John Belushi, who played the legendary Bluto Blutarsky, became the unofficial leader of the group. His energy was infectious, and his ability to blur the lines between reality and performance was unmatched. But it wasn't just Belushi who got into character. Bruce McGill, who played D-Day, turned his motel room into a nightly party hub. Kevin Bacon, who played the uptight Chip Diller from the rival Omega House, often felt like an outsider, just as his character did in the film. The divide between the Deltas and Omegas wasn't just an on-screen dynamic, it was real. The stories from the set are legendary. One of the most infamous incidents occurred when the cast decided to attend a real fraternity party on campus. They walked into a jock fraternity's party, and things quickly got out of hand. The actors, already in character, responded to taunts from the football players by throwing beer, which escalated into an all-out brawl. It's a perfect example of how life imitated art during the making of Animal House. The cast wasn't just playing fraternity brothers, they were living it, with all the chaos and camaraderie that came with it. John Landis, though, tried to keep some semblance of order. He knew that for all the wildness, the film needed to stay on track. He imposed strict rules on set: no real drinking during filming, no drugs, and no behavior that would disrupt production. Despite the chaotic environment, everyone knew that when the cameras were rolling, it was time to get serious. Landis's direction kept the film from spiraling out of control, even as the cast pushed the boundaries off-screen. The legacy of John Belushi and improvisation. John Belushi was a force of nature, a comedic genius whose improvisational skills turned Animal House into a masterpiece. His performance as Bluto Blutarsky wasn't just acting, it was a wild, untamed expression of raw talent that left an indelible mark on the world of comedy. When you think about Animal House, it's impossible not to think of Belushi. And when you think of Belushi, you think of those moments that seem so effortless, yet were born from his unique ability to improvise. Belushi's gift for improvisation is what truly set him apart. He had this uncanny ability to take a scene and twist it into something entirely his own, something that wasn't on the page, but felt so right for the character. One of the most famous examples of this is the line, "Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?" Hell no. It wasn't in the script. In fact, it wasn't even supposed to happen. But in that moment, Belushi didn't just recite lines. He became Bluto, fully embodying the character's chaotic energy and lack of historical knowledge. What's remarkable about this line is how Belushi delivered it with such conviction that it felt completely natural, despite its obvious inaccuracy. It wasn't just a slip of the tongue, it was a deliberate choice to play into the character's dim-witted yet passionate nature. The brilliance of Belushi was that he understood the character so well that he could take these risks, knowing they would pay off. And they did, spectacularly. The audience didn't just laugh because the line was funny. They laughed because it was so perfectly Bluto. It was a moment of pure comedic genius that could only have come from someone like Belushi, who lived and breathed improvisation. Belushi's impact on Animal House extended far beyond that one line. Throughout the film, his improvisations added depth and unpredictability to Bluto, turning what could have been a one-dimensional character into someone unforgettable. Take the scene where Bluto smashes a guitar over the head of a folk singer in the stairwell. The scene was supposed to end with him simply taking the guitar, but Belushi took it a step further, smashing it to pieces in a fit of frustration. It was unscripted, unplanned, and absolutely perfect. That's the magic of improvisation. Those moments that aren't in the script, but are so true to the character that they become iconic. When we talk about comedic legends, Belushi stands tall among the greats. He had the same instinctive understanding of timing and character that made stars like Robin Williams and Richard Pryor so beloved. Like them, Belushi could take a scene in a completely unexpected direction, keeping both the audience and his fellow actors on their toes. His ability to improvise wasn't just a skill, it was a way of life. Every scene he was in crackled with energy because you never knew what he was going to do next, and that unpredictability is what made him such a powerhouse in Animal House. But Belushi wasn't the only one who had a memorable moment of improvisation in Animal House. Kevin Bacon, in one of his earliest roles, delivered a line that has become almost as iconic as Belushi's. The line, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" is one of those lines that has seeped into pop culture, often quoted or referenced in contexts far removed from its original setting. But the story behind it is as interesting as the line itself. In the film, Bacon plays Chip Diller, an eager pledge for the Omega fraternity who is subjected to a brutal initiation ritual. As he's being paddled, he's required to say, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" over and over again. On the surface, it's a line that's meant to show his submission to the fraternity's power, but it's delivered with such earnestness that it becomes both hilarious and pathetic at the same time. What many people don't know is that this scene was far more intense than it appears on screen. The paddle that was supposed to be used was made of balsa wood, something light and harmless, designed to make the scene look painful without actually causing harm. But John Landis, the director, had other ideas. He kept pushing Bacon to do take after take, each time hitting him harder with a real paddle. By the end of the shoot, Bacon wasn't just acting, he was genuinely in pain. And that pain, mixed with his character's desperate desire to fit in, is what made the line so powerful. The intensity of that scene is a testament to Bacon's commitment as an actor, even at such a young age. He could have played it safe, delivering the line with a wink to the audience, but instead he leaned into the pain and humiliation, making the moment feel all too real. It's this blend of physical comedy and genuine discomfort that gives the scene its enduring power. In many ways, it's a perfect counterpoint to Belushi's freewheeling improvisation. Where Belushi brought chaos and unpredictability, Bacon brought a raw, almost masochistic dedication to his role. Both Belushi and Bacon's contributions to Animal House highlight the power of improvisation and commitment in filmmaking. Belushi's genius lay in his ability to see beyond the script, to find those moments of spontaneity that brought Bluto to life in ways no one could have predicted. Bacon, on the other hand, showed that sometimes the most memorable moments come from enduring the real physical and emotional toll of a scene. Together, they helped create a film that is not just funny, but also deeply human in its portrayal of absurdity, pain, and the desperate desire to belong. The cultural impact and controversies. Animal House didn't just hit the theaters in 1978, it exploded onto the scene, shaking up the comedy landscape and leaving a lasting imprint that still resonates today. When you talk about the evolution of comedy, particularly the college comedy genre, Animal House stands as a pivotal moment, a film that redefined what was possible in cinematic humor. It's not just a movie, it's a blueprint that countless films and TV shows have tried to emulate ever since. The influence of Animal House on future comedies is undeniable. Before its release, the concept of a college comedy was relatively tame. Movies set in college often focused on the trials and tribulations of student life, but they rarely ventured into the chaotic, rule-breaking, and utterly anarchic world that Animal House portrayed. This film didn't just push boundaries, it obliterated them. It introduced audiences to a world where the outcasts, the misfits, and the rebels were the heroes, and authority figures were nothing more than obstacles to be laughed at and overcome. Animal House set the standard for what a college comedy could be, and its impact can be seen in a slew of films that followed. Think about Revenge of the Nerds or Old School. Both films owe a huge debt to the groundwork laid by Animal House. Even more modern comedies like Superbad or American Pie carry the DNA of Animal House in their irreverence and their celebration of youthful rebellion. These movies all share that same spirit of chaos, that same sense of fun that Animal House perfected. The idea that college is a place not just for learning, but for wild, unrestrained antics became a staple in the genre thanks to Animal House. One of the film's most famous lines, "Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son," delivered by Dean Wormer, encapsulates the movie's thematic core. On the surface, it's a cutting remark aimed at Flounder, one of the Delta Tau Chi fraternity's more hapless members. But dig a little deeper, and this line reveals the underlying tension between the characters and the society they're rebelling against. Dean Wormer's words are a harsh judgment, reflecting a societal expectation that these young men are failing to meet. It's a line that drips with disdain for the Deltas' carefree lifestyle, but it also highlights the film's larger commentary on conformity and the pressures to fit into a mold that society deems acceptable. The Deltas, of course, reject this notion entirely. They embrace their flaws, their excesses, and their mistakes, turning them into a badge of honor. In doing so, they challenge the idea that success in life is tied to rigid standards of behavior. The film doesn't just make you laugh, it makes you think about the absurdity of those standards and the freedom that comes with rejecting them. It's this subversive element that gives Animal House its edge and makes it more than just a series of jokes strung together. But with all this influence and innovation came controversy. When Animal House was first released, it didn't take long for it to become a lightning rod for criticism. Some critics praised it for its bold humor and its willingness to tackle taboo subjects with a wink and a nod. Others, however, were appalled. They saw it as a glorification of delinquency, a film that encouraged bad behavior and mocked the institutions that were supposed to uphold order and discipline. In the cultural context of the late 1970s, these criticisms were particularly sharp. America was emerging from a decade of social upheaval, and for many, Animal House seemed like a step too far, a film that celebrated the very chaos that society was trying to move past. The infamous hazing scene, where pledges are subjected to brutal initiation rituals, was one of the most talked about aspects of the film. For some, it was a brilliant piece of satire, a hilarious exaggeration of the lengths to which fraternities would go to enforce loyalty and obedience. For others, it was deeply troubling, a scene that made light of a serious issue. Hazing in fraternities has long been a controversial topic, and Animal House didn't shy away from showing it in all its ridiculous, over-the-top brutality. Today, that scene would likely be received very differently. In an era where hazing incidents have led to serious injuries and even deaths, the humor in such a scene might not land the same way it did in 1978. Modern audiences are more aware of the real-world consequences of hazing, and the line between satire and endorsement can be much harder to navigate. Films like Neighbors and 21 and Over have continued to explore the theme of hazing, but often with a more critical eye, reflecting the changing attitudes toward this dangerous tradition. Yet, despite the controversies, Animal House has endured. It has become a touchstone for generations of comedy fans, a film that continues to be quoted, referenced, and celebrated. The controversies that once surrounded it have only added to its mystique, making it a symbol of a time when comedy dared to challenge the status quo. The cultural impact of Animal House is immense. It's not just a film, it's a cultural phenomenon that captured the spirit of its time while influencing countless comedies that followed. Behind the scenes. The chaos you see in Animal House isn't just on the screen, it was very much alive behind the scenes as well. To really get the essence of the film, you need to get into the real-life inspirations, the off-camera madness, and the unique vision of director John Landis. This isn't just a movie, it's a reflection of the wild, unrestrained energy that birthed it. The infamous Delta Tau Chi fraternity didn't come out of thin air. Chris Miller, one of the film's co-writers, drew heavily from his own experiences at Dartmouth College, where he was a member of the Alpha Delta Phi fraternity. Miller's frat was notorious for its outrageous behavior, and many of those wild moments found their way into the script. The notorious vomiting cult, where members would eat specific foods to produce spectacular vomit, didn't make the final cut, but it set the tone for the kind of humor that would define Animal House. The food fight scene, one of the film's most memorable moments, was directly inspired by real events from Miller's college days. The spirit of rebellion and irreverence that defined Miller's fraternity life became the beating heart of Delta House. But the film's authenticity didn't just come from the script. It was also born from the off-camera antics of the cast. Before filming even began, the actors who played the Delta brothers were encouraged to bond, and bond they did. Staying together in a motel in Eugene, Oregon, the cast lived the Delta lifestyle in real life, partying together, pulling pranks, and blurring the lines between their characters and themselves. This camaraderie translated into a chemistry on screen that felt genuine because it was. The cast didn't just play fraternity brothers, they became them. One legendary off-screen story involves the cast crashing a real fraternity party at the University of Oregon. Expecting a night of fun, the actors instead found themselves in a brawl with the university's football players. The fight, fueled by the cast's commitment to their roles, ended with Bruce McGill, who played D-Day, getting a black eye. This incident was a perfect example of how deeply the actors had immersed themselves in their characters, living the chaos they were about to portray on screen. Back at the motel, the parties continued, with McGill's room becoming the unofficial headquarters for nightly gatherings. The cast partied hard, mirroring the antics of their on-screen personas. This off-screen behavior wasn't just about having fun, it was about getting into character, making the chaos of Delta House feel authentic and lived in. Even Kevin Bacon, who played the uptight Chip Diller, felt the divide between himself and the rest of the cast, just as his character did in the film. The separation wasn't just a performance, it was real. Amidst all this madness, John Landis played a crucial role in keeping the film on track. Landis had a clear vision for Animal House, and he wasn't afraid to fight for it. He battled the studio over casting, insisting on lesser-known actors instead of the big names Universal Pictures wanted. His choice to cast John Belushi as Bluto, despite studio reservations, proved to be a stroke of genius. Belushi's performance became iconic, cementing his place in comedy history. Landis also knew how to harness the off-screen chaos to enhance the film. He encouraged improvisation, allowing the actors to explore their characters and bring spontaneity to their performances. But he also knew when to rein things in, balancing the wild energy of the cast with the need to create a cohesive, entertaining film. Landis's direction was the glue that held Animal House together, turning potential chaos into a comedic masterpiece. The enduring legacy of Animal House is more than just a comedy. It's a cornerstone of film history, a movie that set the standard for an entire genre and continues to influence filmmakers and comedians today. When you look at the landscape of college comedies, or really any comedy that dares to be outrageous, you'll find the DNA of Animal House running through it. The film didn't just break the rules, it rewrote them, showing that comedy could be bold, irreverent, and wildly unpredictable. Even decades after its release, Animal House remains a touchstone for comedy. It's the kind of film that's consistently mentioned in best of lists, not just for its humor, but for its impact on the genre. Whether it's on a list of the greatest comedies of all time or a discussion of the most influential films ever made, Animal House has earned its place. It's not just that the movie is funny, it's that it changed how we think about what's funny. It gave permission to generations of filmmakers to push boundaries, to explore humor that's loud, messy, and unabashedly ridiculous. You see its influence in films like Old School and Superbad, which echo the spirit of rebellion and the celebration of youthful excess that Animal House perfected. Even in TV shows like Parks and Recreation or Community, there's a certain irreverence and anarchy that feels like it was born in Delta House. These modern comedies owe a lot to the trail Animal House blazed, and that's why it continues to be a reference point for anyone looking to make a mark in comedy. But Animal House isn't just about carefully crafted jokes and meticulously planned scenes. Part of its enduring legacy comes from the spontaneous moments that were never supposed to happen. The film is filled with instances where the magic came not from the script, but from the actors' improvisations, from the happy accidents that weren't planned but became iconic. Take the legendary line, "Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?" Hell no, delivered by John Belushi. That line wasn't in the script. It was a mistake, a bit of improvisation that could have been edited out, but instead became one of the most memorable moments in the film. It's a perfect example of how spontaneity can lead to something brilliant. Belushi's delivery is so sincere, so perfectly in line with his character's blustering ignorance, that it turns a historical blunder into comedy gold. This wasn't the only moment of improvisation that left a mark. Throughout the film, there are countless little moments, ad-libs, unscripted gestures, even entire scenes that weren't planned but ended up being essential to the film's charm. The food fight in the cafeteria, the smashed guitar in the stairwell, these are the moments that give Animal House its chaotic energy, its sense that anything could happen. And that's what makes it so timeless. The movie feels alive because it was allowed to breathe, to evolve beyond what was written on the page. There's something powerful in the idea that mistakes and spontaneity can lead to masterpieces. In a world that often values control, precision, and meticulous planning, Animal House is a reminder that sometimes the best things happen when you let go of the reins. The film's enduring appeal comes from its willingness to embrace chaos, to find humor in the unexpected, and to let those moments shine. It's a philosophy that resonates not just in comedy, but in all forms of creativity. The legacy of Animal House is a testament to the idea that art doesn't have to be perfect to be impactful. In fact, it's often the imperfections, the rough edges, the moments that weren't planned, that resonate the most. Animal House is beloved not just because it's funny, but because it feels real in its absurdity. It's a film that wasn't afraid to take risks, to make mistakes, and to find beauty in the chaos. As long as there are filmmakers willing to push boundaries, as long as there are audiences who love to laugh at the absurdity of life, Animal House will continue to be relevant. It's more than just a movie, it's a cultural landmark that reminds us of the power of spontaneity, the joy of rebellion, and the timeless appeal of a good old-fashioned food fight. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.